Welcome to another show of the Heartland Cycling Network. And this evening, I've got another great guest, which is Mike Petersen. He's owner of Top Gun Bikes. And it's really kind of an interesting store, and I'll let Michael tell you about it. So, Michael, tell us about what is Top Gun Bikes?
So Top Gun Bikes, we're primarily personal electric transportation, so that includes e-bikes, e-scooters, e-skateboards, any of the strange e-products that are coming out now. Our primary sales have been e-bikes. They're just the most popular, but we're seeing a lot of interest in the skateboards, and they're actually using them as transportation in many cases, and even the scooters and anything electric or electrically assisted that's a small personal.
Yeah. E-bikes are becoming much more popular and much more prevalent out there. So tell us a little bit more about e-bikes themselves. I understand there's different classes.
Yeah, there are different classes. Different regions have different rules. Even different countries have different rules. The United States has probably the most liberal rules in that you're allowed to have a motor as high as 750 watts. You can, in most places, you can ride what's called a Class 3, which has speeds of as much as 28 miles an hour until the motor stops helping you.
Right, so it's pedal assist up to 28 miles an hour.
Pedal assist, and most places will even allow the throttle as well.
Okay, and that would be, I mean, what are the classes? I mean, there's like, I understand class 1, 2, and 3. So can you define those?
Class 1 will have no throttle whatsoever. It's pedal assist only. There can't be a throttle on the bike. The motor is going to stop helping you at 20 miles an hour. It's a very, it's meant to be an assist only. Probably more appropriate for folks who are, leisure riding and that sort of thing. A Class 2, you can have a throttle on that. Your speed limit's going to be 25 on that before it stops helping you. Class 3 is the most open class, going up to 28 miles an hour.
Okay.
Those are those are e-bike specific classes.
Yeah. I know in Nebraska, any e-bike is still considered a bicycle, so it's still available or allowed on the trail system. But I mean, obviously, they can be used on the road as well.
That's right. My customers that often ask about that, and we recommend that any bicycle really, that they ride on the road and avoid sidewalks. They tend to be more dangerous than people think.
Right, yeah.
And to be careful on the trails and not be, they're going to ruin it for everyone if they are abusing that, going too fast and that sort of thing.
Okay, so like e-bike, you say it's got a motor. Obviously, it has to have a power supply. How long do those things kind of last as far as going on to, if they go on a ride?
Typical range in your typical factory e-bike, they're going to see, depending on the wind conditions, the hills, how much the individual is pedaling. They're going to see anywhere from 20 miles on most of them up to as much as 50 miles even. That's the general range for your average size battery.
Okay. I mean, with a motor and a battery, how much do these bikes weigh?
The motor and the battery on your typical e-bike, it tends to add a good 20 pounds to the bike, maybe even 25. Really depends. They tend to be built a little heavier than your average bikes, so they're going to have slightly bigger tires, and sometimes they'll even overbuild some of the frame components and things like that just to...
Well, the wider tire also takes and provides, let's say, a little more cushion too, but I think there's some good suspension on some of these bikes.
Yes, many of them come with at least a front suspension. Rear suspension is a little more unusual because on an e-bike it's more about comfort than it is, say, on a mountain bike where you need to jump, or a downhill bike where you need to come down pretty hard. That's not generally done on e-bikes, so rear suspensions are more rare. They do exist, but front suspension is pretty common.
Okay, okay. For a typical user, in terms of, you know, an e-bike, what are they looking at in terms of their investment? I mean, it can go all over the place, I'm sure.
It really is. You can find very entry-level bikes on some of your online mass retailers and things for, you know, even $300 or $400. You know, and they can really, sky's the limit on the upper end. Some custom bikes can reach 20,000. So it's really all over the place. Your average consumer electric bike, not a custom, but just a factory bike, most people are going to find what they need for, you know, $1,500.
So would that describe sort of what Top Gun actually offers in terms of types of bikes?
So Top Gun, we try to offer, seeing as how e-bikes are still not prevalent here, the whole range as much as we can. We try not to have anything, say, down at $400. Most of those are, I wouldn't plug one of those batteries in my house.
Yeah.
They tend to be, you know, they have some problems.
Yeah.
That's too inexpensive. Really, the battery itself should cost that, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But we have a product that starts around $700, and then we, you know, we have factory options up to, say, $3,000 or $4,000. And then from there on, we do conversions, and we also have custom bikes for people who need something that you can't really buy from a factory. So.
Okay. And what would you say is a reason for a custom bike? What would they be looking for?
So if it's a conversion, it might be a favorite bike that maybe due to an injury or ailment, a person, they want to keep it, it's comfortable, they've put a lot into it, they love it, but they really need the help. And they generally, those folks will get a smaller system that's really just going to help them on the hills. And
Okay, so in other words, if I have a bike already and I love it,
that's right.
and I want to convert it to an e-bike, you can do that.
That's right. Yeah.
Very nice.
Most any bike can be converted.
Most any bike. Okay.
That's right. Most anything with wheels can be converted. Okay. So yeah.
All right. Well, obviously you sell more than just bikes, because you mentioned scooters, and they are becoming a little bit more popular. I know there's the scooter program that Omaha is now allowing, but your scooters are a little different than those that you would typically rent.
We try to stay away from, there's a reason the rental scooters are built the way they are, is because they have to take a tremendous amount of abuse, being just tossed down on the sidewalk, and you know, they're not, the riders aren't going to take care of them, of course. So those are built the way they are for good reasons, and they're a little slower, again, to prevent accidents. These are people who don't necessarily own scooters, aren't proficient in their use, so they, you know, they have to be built the way they are, and I understand the way they are. We try to carry a little better, or I should say a little better experience in a scooter, where we'll have inflatable tires and disc brakes and a little higher speeds. You know, this is somebody who's going to own the scooter. They're going to be a little more proficient with it. And it's aimed at transportation.
I was going to say, it's more of a device for transportation.
Exactly. I mean, we even have luggage racks on our scooters and things like that. So
okay.
Lights, you know, it's meant to be used for more than just a couple blocks. It's for someone who wants to use it a lot.
Okay, okay. Well, and then you mentioned skateboards. Now, I've seen some electric skateboards that have been out on the trails, which I'm going, first time I saw them, I saw these lights down on the front, and I'm going, what is going on here, you know? I've seen regular skateboarders out there, but this is the first time I've actually seen some people that have been on e-skateboards.
And that part of the industry is really exploding. There are lots of companies offering extremely sophisticated machines. Some of them can do very irresponsible speeds that I don't recommend on a skateboard that can't stop. But they're very powerful. They handle great. They're very safe if they're dealt with in a safe manner. And they're giving people more options. They have off-road wheels on them now, so you can cross grass or, you know, gravel or whatever.
Okay.
Some people are actually using them as, say, college transportation or things like that, or maybe small town transportation. You know, they'll cruise along at 25 miles an hour, and
wow.
They handle rough roads, and they're becoming a practical option for those who like to skateboard.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. I guess I could not see myself on a skateboard going 25 miles an hour, at least at my age. I mean, when I was younger, I could probably handle that.
Yeah.
But
Me neither. I'm not doing it either.
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting. I know that you personally do not really own a car. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So what is your main form of transportation?
My main form is I keep 2 custom e-bikes. I have the luxury of having bikes that are specific to my needs. So in the wintertime, I use a large e-bike that has 2 front wheels, making it safe in ice and snow conditions. I have them set up for Nebraska moped laws, so they'll do 30 miles an hour safely. I wear a helmet, I follow all the traffic rules, and I have my driver's license with me, and I stay off the paths and the sidewalks. That's all part of the deal with a moped.
Okay, yeah, explain that about mopeds. I mean, some people may think, well, a moped, I sort of remember that as something that you may pedal a little bit the crank to get it started, but then you're running, a motor, a gas motor. Well, you don't deal in gas motors.
That's right. So basically the bare rules for mopeds, at 30 miles an hour maximum speed, unless you're going downhill, of course. You must wear a DOT-approved helmet. You have to have a driver's license, Nebraska driver's license with you. And you follow all the traffic rules as if you're a car or a motorcycle. And you stay off of paths and trails. The beauty of electricity instead of a gas machine is that you can simply program in how you want it to behave. My personal bikes, if I were to be on private property, will go faster than 30 miles an hour, but I have them electronically capped at 30 miles an hour so I don't break the law. And I mean, frankly, on the road, it's not really safe to go faster than that on a machine that's not designed to. So, I'm perfectly happy with 30 miles an hour.
Okay, okay, okay. That's interesting. And the other thing about mopeds, at least in Nebraska, you don't have to have them licensed as a vehicle?
That is correct. No license, no insurance.
Okay.
The only thing official on you, you have to have your driver's license on you. But no licensing whatsoever, no motorcycle license or anything like that. So as long as you obey all those criteria.
So that's something that you actually sell too, if somebody would take and want an e-bike. I mean, you brought in your bike for the show, but you would take and actually customize one of those bikes into a moped for a customer?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. And the other thing about the mopeds that you have is that you have multiple gears.
That's correct.
So there's a little difference than, let's say, the standard moped that I recall just was a single what do they call it, a fixie, if you want to call it.
That's right.
You didn't have multiple gears on that thing.
Right. At least personally, I prefer, a single speed will work. I prefer to have the multiple gears. I like having the redundancy. If I run out of battery or I have an electrical problem, I have a gear range that'll still allow me to ride the bike and get home. It'll be slow because it's heavy, but I can get home.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I also like being able to help the motor, whether it be from takeoff or on a steep hill. I like being able to shift into a...
What's the range on something like what you're currently riding?
As far as distance?
Yeah.
This one has a very large battery pack on it. It'll do about 75 miles if you're conservative with it.
Okay, and you've got different levels of power assist or whatever you want to call it.
That's
right?
correct, right. And you can choose that. This is a custom bike, so it has an extreme amount of adjustability. I can adjust for anything, really. I can adjust the speed, I can adjust the power with just a few buttons. And I have a level of adjustability that you don't normally find on a consumer level factory bike.
Okay, okay. Well, that's all very interesting. I know I've come into your shop a couple of times, and the variety of bikes and scooters and I've seen these skateboards with a huge wheel on them. I don't know, what do you call those?
It's called the One Wheel.
One wheel, okay.
It's very innovative in that, well, two reasons. One is it handles extremely tight and sharp. If someone who's proficient at it can really be amazing on them. They're neat to watch. And also, you don't need a remote control like you do on a typical electric skateboard.
Okay.
It responds to leaning forward or leaning backwards.
Right.
So it's very innovative the way they design the machine.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I've seen those once in a while out in the trails too. And that's one of the things about the city of Omaha. They have opened that up. They used to say any motorized device was not permitted, although the exception was e-bikes. E-bikes were still allowed, but they just changed the rules recently, and scooters and some of these other devices are now perfectly fine to be on the trails, although I've seen them before too. It's not that people may not even have known that they couldn't be riding or shouldn't have been riding on those. So, so outside of that, where's your shop actually located? Tell us a
So
little bit about
our
that.
shop is in West Omaha. It's about 120th and West Center Road. We have a nice space where folks can test ride bikes safely. We have an empty lot at the back of the building where folks can take them out and get used to them. I really wanted that for here in Omaha. I wanted people to be able to come in, ask the questions, and then actually take it for a ride and see if it works for them. And that's been really effective. You know,
Okay.
it's really needed.
Well, how long have you been? How long have you had your store? I mean, in doing this.
So the business is about 10 years old. It was primarily online, and primarily the custom bikes were really the main focus. I took over the business a couple of years ago, and I knew that I wanted to go in a new direction, really get everybody on a bike, different skill levels and even health levels and things like that. And I knew that it being the Midwest, where it's still new here relative to other places. So I knew there had to be a showroom. I knew there had to be a place where people could come and actually lay hands on them, ride them. Because if it was always just online, a lot of people aren't going to take the risk. It's a $1,500
Well, yeah, you have
purchase.
a pretty good investment.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and you have to pay the shipping to send it back, and
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
not
Yeah, that's
a
right.
mild
That's right.
thing either. So.
Yeah, and I know in the cycling community, there's always the rule, they call it N+1. N is the number of bikes you own, and 1 is the bike that you want to buy. And I know that there's probably an e-bike in my future. I've been trying to convince my wife to get on an e-bike and try it, and so far I haven't been successful in that. But I certainly do want to try and get her on one, just because I think for certain people that think, riding a bike, one, she doesn't like to ride with me anyhow, okay? Because she knows that I can go 15, 20 miles an hour on my road bike when I'm out riding. And I'll go out for a couple hours, and for me, a ride is 25 miles. I mean, that's where I feel comfortable at, and then I can come home. Well, she doesn't want to do that.
Sure.
So I said, well, you can, let's get an e-bike for you. And that way you don't have to worry about the hills either, because you say you don't like going up and down the hills because of the, extra effort it goes. And I think that's where e-bikes really come into play. And I know with the clubs that I'm part of, there's several members that have and use e-bikes. And it's just there to give them that little assistance so that they can enjoy being outdoors and riding with other people again.
We recently sold a bike. It was actually an adult trike, and it was a full size one. It was for an adolescent boy who, he was 6'2", I think. He was a good size, so it had to be a full size adult trike, and we adapted a motor system to it. I don't remember. I don't know if it was MS or something similar. He had mobility, but his sisters, they would leave him in the dust when they would try to go out riding, and then he had some balance issues. So the trike really gave him the ability to ride, and then the motor gives him the ability to keep up with his sisters. And though I suspect, having seen him ride it, that he probably likes to get out ahead of his sisters too. But
Okay, okay.
But
Well,
it-
and
yeah.
that brings up a good point, is that not all bicycles have two wheels.
It's true.
Of course, bi means two, but there are tricycles out there. And I think I've even seen quadcycles. I mean, they're four-wheel devices. I mean, are you into that as well? Is that something that you can provide if need be?
Yes, as a matter of fact, my winter bike is actually a tricycle. It's not a bicycle, but it has the two wheels in the front instead of
Right.
the rear.
The
And
green machine.
The green machine,
Yeah.
yes, and I regularly ride through blizzards, and I get around better than cars do. I often pass cars that are
Is that
having
front-wheel
trouble.
drive or rear-wheel?
It has a motor in the rear. It could
Okay.
be front as well,
Okay.
but
Okay,
this
because
one-
I'm just saying that you've got the two big wheels. I know they're fat tires, so I mean, they're about 4 inches in diameter, width.
yeah, they're close to 5 inches wide each.
Okay, you got 4
So I
inches.
get that flotation over snow. They don't dig in and go down to the pavement. I actually kind of float over snow.
Okay,
And the front end is very safe. I feel extremely safe. I feel safer than in a car in
Okay.
bad conditions on that
very cool.
particular bike.
That's very nice, yeah. So is there anything that I should have asked that I haven't asked you?
There are, and we try to have a range. There's a range of uses. We've been thinking a lot about the delivery folks because there's so many of them now, and their main expense is their vehicle. There are things called cargo bikes. Electric cargo bikes are great. You can load them up with, I see people deliver, from grocery stores and things like that with little compact cars, trying to keep their gas prices down and things like that, where something like an electric cargo bike, they can carry just as much, but they might spend 20 cents a day instead of the gas and the expenses for a vehicle. And I know that with, since what's happened in the world, we have, deliveries have gotten really big. There's a lot of delivery drivers, so now they don't have to cover as wide an area. So they don't have to worry about getting on an interstate or anything like
And
that.
the ranges are like 50, 75 miles
Right.
too, and
Exactly.
how long does it take to recharge a battery?
Your typical factory bike, they have very slow speed chargers for them, so they'll take about 5 or 6 hours, but that can be upgraded to make that faster. I mean,
Okay.
there's even some solar options now.
Okay,
so.
does that, what's the longevity of a battery? How often do you have to replace those?
A battery that's well taken care of, I've had people 5, 6, 7 years.
Okay,
And by taking care of, don't let it freeze. Don't store it empty. Don't store it totally full. That's really the main things. Otherwise, you can top them off. They don't have a memory. You can top off a charge whenever you want. You're not going to hurt it.
okay, okay. That's very cool, very nice. Anything else about e-bikes that people might like to know?
Well, they take away a lot of the negatives of bike riding. That's really something that drew me to them, besides the fact that I knew I was going to be using a bike for transportation. Depending on the area, I get around as fast as as vehicle traffic. The negatives of hills and grinding up and down hills or riding into a stiff wind are just eliminated. They really take away a lot of the common negatives and make it more accessible really to far more people than before e-bikes came along.
Okay, very good. Well, I encourage our viewers to consider looking at Top Gun bikes and e-bikes in general, because it does offer a whole new world for people that either used to ride and don't ride anymore for a variety of reasons, balance reasons or what have you, or the fact that they just don't feel that they've got the energy anymore, and the e-bike can provide that little oomph. And Top Gun bikes has scooters and other devices as well, so it's certainly worthwhile going over there to take and look and see what they have to offer. So that's it for today's show, and I'd like to take and remind everybody to just pedal on.